Today I'm here to give you a speech about how my grandmother stands against the world. How many of you have heard the phrase, "You may quit Soviet Union, but Soviet Union never will quit you"? Probably not a lot, because this is the phrase Eastern European parents tell you each time you ask about their old-fashioned habits from the past that they still use nowadays. For example, did you know that in Ukraine we marinate basically everything? Not only vegetables, such as cucumbers and tomatoes, but also fruits, meats, fish. Our parents, they grew up their childhood in USSR, and they were taught by their grandparents to conserve everything. A silly yet understandable habit coming from collectivization times, where food was taken away and millions of Ukrainians died. Even using this as our example, it can be understandable that we all think of everyone who wants to come back to USSR as a joke. Who on earth would want to come back to those depressing, horrific times where you make one joke about Lenin and suddenly you disappear, nobody ever sees you again? We all collectively agreed that when it comes to Soviet Union, there is no undefinable gray area where pragmatism and morality is crossed in a battle to decide what is right and what is wrong. It is quite clear that USSR is black, concentrating all the bad of the world in it. Well, today I'm here to tell you the story of my grandmother, the only person who I've met who actually wants to come back and likes communism better than any other regime. Let me introduce you to her before you think anything negative. Her name is Klavdia, and if you look at her photos, you wouldn't think that she's been through a lot. You'd think she's one of those old people who keep swearing at the government for making her pension smaller and going to market every Saturday. Like, for example, on this photo where she holds 2 watermelons, you can see she's very proud of them because she grew them on her garden. Or this picture of her in her pretty summer dress. Well, she was born in 1942, right in the middle of World War II, where explosions and bombings were surrounding her house. And her mother used to hide her and her siblings in the nearby reeds by the swamp, literally getting through bullets and trying to stop German soldiers and talking them out of killing people. She used to have 8 siblings, and unfortunately only 4 of them survived through not only USSR but World War II. She has been through it all. What has she been through? She has been through collectivization, which was a man-made famine in Ukraine from 1932 to 1933. And even though she wasn't really alive at the time, she has suffered through all the long-term consequences. We call it Golodomor, coming from the word Golod, which is translated as hunger from Russian. Her mom survived it by working at kindergarten, where the Soviet Union was kind enough to give a bit of food to kids. And she always sacrificed her health by bringing this tiniest portion of food she was giving to her children home. The other event she has been through is Chernobyl disaster, which happened on the night of April 26, 1986. Soviet media covered it for 2 days. It was mentioned not in a single newspaper. What was even worse is that on May 2nd, 120,000 Kiev residents went out to celebrate the Workers' Day. None of them knew they were exposed to extremely dangerous levels of radiation. Her mother, she was one of those people who still went to work, even though the entire family was sitting at home because they knew something was up. And they tried to convince Klavdia's mother not to go anywhere, but she understood that if not her, who else would do it? Who else would work and raise some, do something in her garden, produce some food, if not her. Soon enough, obviously, she died from the amount of radiation she received. My grandmother kept telling this story about how she discovered how one of her closest relatives died. She was at her friend's birthday party, and she was having so much fun drinking kids' champagne, being proud of herself, until her world shattered. The next day, she discovered her mother died. And to this this day, she still has this belief that whenever something so good happens in her life, she finally feels wonderful, like heaven on earth, then something's gonna happen soon enough. And even though we try to talk her out of this and try to make her enjoy the moment, she still has this attitude. Post-war Stalin repressions. After any war, in any country, both victors and lost, public mood is dominated by this expectation of change, of positive change, as a reward for everything they've been through. Any government can handle it in both ways. Support it, at least to some extent, satisfy society's needs, or do like Stalin, basically ignore everything that society wants and make the regime even tighter, stricter, more propaganda. And large part of Soviet population was peasantry, and they really, really hoped that those collective farms they hated so much would be abolished. Well, once again, their dreams were shattered. Also, we can't forget that during World War II, millions of Soviet citizens, in one way or another, they were abroad, right? And they were culturally shocked because even the poorest countries lived so much better than them. When the Red Army reached Germany and Austria, according to many testimonies, they were sincerely perplexed. They kept asking themselves, what did Germans need that they didn't already have? Because they lived so good. And obviously it affected the public mood to believe in the Soviet Union, and no propaganda could ever fix that. Well, what was good about Soviet times? Now let's go back in time and look at Soviet Union with my grandmother's eyes, which used to romanticize everything, having pink sunglasses on them, and looking at harsh reality with positive attitude. Like she always likes to mention, everybody was equal. One of the primary criticisms of capitalism is the wealth distribution. She always says how she hates that it's either extremely abnormally rich elite or beyond threshold of poverty people. She keeps arguing that in communism everybody was equal. That's what was bonded people. You were given an apartment, food, household items, everything that you needed to survive. Also in capitalism, she keeps saying how there were a lot of insufficient social safety nets. There's no such thing as pension or, if you suddenly died on the road, nobody would help you if you were poor. In communism, she kept arguing how there was this spirit of teamwork, cohesion within people, that employees on factories, they loved working with each other. They created lifetime friendships. There was also this organization created by a communist party called Pioneers. Basically, mostly it was for students, but children, teenagers, anybody could participate. You were given this red tie, and whenever you went out in public with this, you were expected to be respected and appreciated. You could show it to your friends to show off. And to this day, if my parents promise me something, they keep saying, "Oh, I swear, word of Pioneer." And each time you can't help but just believe them. Svjetlovosk, the city she was born in and still lives in for 82 years of her life. Were the changes positive after Ukraine gained independence? Well, during Soviet times, Svjetlovosk used to be second cleanest city in Ukraine. Steamships and boats always came to the shore from the sea, bringing older and younger generations, students, pioneers, everybody who was eager enough to explore the best parts of Ukraine. The architecture was also quite amazing. The city was small, yet well built, and parks were always regularly cleaned. As I said, tourists really liked exploring all the best parts of it, like mesmerizing fountains. There was also this one theater that I used to love to go as a child. Now it's unfortunately stopped working. Always the country's best singers and actors always used to come there to perform. Well, what happened after Ukraine gained independence? The city not only changed, but deteriorated. It was abandoned. With each new mayor, more and more money was corrupted and stolen. The roads became unusable. The parks were no longer maintained, and no people could be supported there. It's like the time froze, creating a time loop. The architecture, as I said, is still Soviet. Still from times of Khrushchev, we call them Khrushchev here. And obviously people started immigrating because the city just deteriorated more and more. They were immigrating to the better parts of the country with better opportunities, or to the capital, obviously, leaving a lot of ghosts. This is the buildings who have no residents in them. And looking at all this, it can be quite understandable, the fact that my grandmother wants to come back to her prime years, where her city was still one of the best in Ukraine. Last but not least reason why she wants to come back is she met the love of her life during her prime years. Now picture this. He was a captain of this team she called Red Horizon. She was his assistant that he constantly protected from endless tutors and unwanted individuals. He was a stoic figure, always alone, never wanted any women in his life. Something you would call a person with a hard stare and a kind heart. He was her guardian angel, a protector. He always allowed her to sleep in his cabin whenever those endless tutors would pursue my beautiful grandmother a bit too hard. And as they sailed through storms and calm waters, a beautiful, silent connection bloomed. At some point, this friendship turned into love, as enduring as the steel hull of Red Horizon. And fate led my grandmother in the heart of the vast Soviet Union, amidst the churning waves of the sea. Fate led her to marry this gallant gentleman and raise 2 wonderful children. Guys, to conclude this speech, I just want to emphasize how important it is to embrace the diversity of thought. That even though one may think that some event was horrible, the other person, it may contain wonderful memories for them. You never know. It's very important to see positives in everything, in every single aspect. And together we can build a world where every story is shared from generation to generation, every experience is valuable, and every individual is respected. Thank you.